Data comes out of everything that we do. So every channel's got a huge amount of data, every piece of research has data. We're trying to balance that with user behavior.
This is Velocitize Talks, and I'm Eric Jones. I'm here with David Wharram, the CEO of Coast Digital. David, great to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about Coast Digital and your unique value proposition in the marketplace.
Okay, so Coast is kind of what you'd expect from a full service agency. So we do the UX design and build work, project work effectively. We do marketing activities, so things like SEO, PPC, display, so programmatic display, affiliates, those kind of things. The bit that probably sets us apart is the strategy piece that we're doing. And there's traditional strategy. So there's looking at performance of campaigns, reviewing performance of websites, all the things that go into us deciding what the future of the digital marketing campaign should be. The piece that we're doing that's probably slightly different from other people is we're trying to balance data and the understanding of data, because data comes out of everything that we do. So every channel's got a huge amount of data, every piece of research has data. We're trying to balance that with user behavior. And we're using tools. I'm not saying that data tools aren't good, and the UX research that we do is fantastic. But the balance that we're trying to do is the emotional response to stimuli. So trying to get an understanding of how people are reacting to all those messages that we're pushing out. And that's probably the difference of what we're doing at the moment.
How do you think biometrics has played a role in sort of helping you develop better user experiences?
Yeah, sure. So we've got tools that we've always used to measure user experience and design better user experiences. And I think biometrics isn't replacing those tools. But what biometrics allows us to do throughout different journeys, so if we just take the user design journey, so design and build journey, you think about someone coming into a website and when they leave, the point of what we're trying to do with biometrics on that phase is really understand why things are engaging with them. So if we take a step back and think strap lines, if we think about button positions, the basics of biometrics is an understanding of like eye tracking. So where are people looking around the site? Where are they going? What's their journey throughout the site? That's great, and that works well. Data does the same job, so we can use analytics to tell us where someone's leaving, exit rates, bounce rates. But the data piece that we were doing before doesn't tell us why something's happening. I think that's the difference with biometrics, is biometrics is telling us the why. So it's given us an understanding from a content point of view, from video, from just general user journeys, from an eye tracking point of view, of where someone's heading and why they're going there. And I think that emotional understanding that we can touch on probably a bit later with things like facial expression, those things allow us to understand the why. And I think that's probably the difference. That's how we're using it currently. And it can be used, the exciting thing I think, is it can be used for lots of different things. So we use biometrics for CRO. So the idea of continuously evolving a website. So CRO is conversion rate optimization, continuously changing a site based on what's working and what's not working. That's always been a data-driven process. The part that we're doing for biometrics now is really, if all you did in biometrics was eye tracking, you get a much better understanding of what's working and what's not working. So an abandoned basket is a great understanding of what's going on. The biometrics piece allows us to say and hone in with audiences of exactly what's working and what's not. We get clients come to us all the time and they say, we don't like our current site. The site's rubbish, we're moving on from that. Actually, that's not true. Even the worst looking site, your audiences have found a way to engage with them. And they've found a user journey through that site. And it might not be what you thought it was, but don't throw everything away. And the only way we can really understand that, apart from the data tools that we use, is to sit with people that maybe in their own environments. Contextual research is important to us, but understanding how they're engaging with it is the part that we're interested in. And if we sit with them, and if we watch them, and if we ask them to complete tasks, and we use eye tracking, and we use GSR, so galvanic skin response, and we do facial expression, those things together give us a really solid understanding of what's working. And then design and build wise, we're understanding what's working currently, but we're also testing on the way through. So say we come up with this great idea, it's based in research, so there's a reason for everything on the page, and we've got a good wireframe. We're kind of not arrogant enough to think that we've got it right at that point. Our job at that point is to do biometrics again and UX testing again to really understand, is it performing the way we wanted it to?
So given all the work that you've done with brands and their sites, what are some of the sort of key ingredients that you'd cite as the things that make a website successful or highly performant?
Yeah, so success Success on the site, there's our normal KPIs. I'd say you can take that back to the data KPIs of just general performance. And I guess what I don't want to say is that those things aren't important. The KPIs we're also looking at from a performance point of view of a site is really the emotional engagement. So I think for too many years in our industry, we've been pushing information. I think we're so used to creating names for things that customers don't understand. We're used to just putting images and content out there from an SEO point of view because we know we have to do it. We know we need more pages. We know we need more sections of the site. What we're doing with Biometrics is trying to understand, does it resonate? And I think that's the emotional resonance that we can get from that information. We should start our journey in digital marketing with something like Biometrics because we can really understand what message is going to resonate at the beginning. What's the key part that makes people happy, or what's the key part that engages people? And then we should test from there. From that point, that's our testing, that's our CRO point. So we do CRO and we do all this data testing, and we end up with test after test after test, and the site gets really refined as to where we're going. But where is our starting point? What is that point at the beginning that we know is engaging? And that's the piece, that's that kind of killer piece that we're interested in.
You do development work in two great open source platforms, WordPress and Drupal. What would you say are the benefits of those two respective platforms?
What drives it? So I feel like technology has kind of caught up now. So I feel like all of the platforms do the things that customers expect them to do. They're easily editable now. We can build on them. We can create quite a robust global site in a lot of cases. We use WordPress with things like multi-site when we're doing global sites, which works really well. Drupal versus WordPress. Drupal's a technology stack, whereas WordPress is more of an open source CMS, I'd say. I honestly feel like we go into a pitch and we go into work with clients pretty agnostically, and what we choose and the end result is based on their own internal team. And I think that's really important. If you've got lots of people that are updating it, if people have used WordPress in the past, if they're happy with it, they're comfortable with it, that's the right option for them. If we're working with a group of developers, which isn't always the right thing, but if we're working with an IT team, they want more control over it, they want a bit more, that's the way we would head with it. We're actually interested in taking people away from the big platforms now, because I think things like WordPress have caught up. I think they're solid, robust platforms that, for us, that what we're trying to do is we're trying to use any budget that people would be using for money they spend on licenses. We want the license money to put into CRO. We want to evolve a site. We want to change a site based on what's working, what's not working. We want to get to the end point much quicker than you would do by paying a license fee for something.
Attribution modeling, one of the trickiest things in marketing. You do some of that work with clients. What are some of the tips that you'd recommend for marketers to help them, deal with that all-important task?
Yeah, sure. Attribution it's really important. I think there is no one attribution model that is sort of one size fits all. And I think that probably the best tip I'd give is to work with your agency on it. I think that, and be open about the responses for it. I think you can make attribution and any data say what you want it to. Actually, we have to be open to the fact that there's lots of different scenarios. And sometimes a big display campaign or a TV campaign that you're running, whether you like it or not, is having an impact on search. So our job is to show the different scenarios in attribution. And I think one model is kind of wrong to look at. I think we need to look at a couple of different models as we go through and work out what's the right fit for a client.
Right. So talking about search, how do you think voice is going to change the game in SEO?
Yeah, voice. Personally, so our industry is saying that voice is taking over. I think we'll get there. I think that it depends on the generational split. I don't think currently that every generation is used to talking into a device. And I think until that's the norm, I don't think that's something we necessarily need to optimize for in every case. We've written guides around it and we're talking to customers about it. But I'm just not sure, personally, I'm not sure that the device exists yet. I'm not sure that a device exists where people walk down the street and feel comfortable asking for something and get the right response back. I think when we get that, whether it be Apple Glass next year, Apple Glasses, which has been rumored, that might be the gateway device that allows us to talk to a device. until we get there, I'm not sure we're quite at that point.
Neuromarketing. What is it? Why is it important? And how are you using it to influence buying behavior?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so to break down effectively the kit that we've got, because there's so much now that you can use, and we're probably using 50% of the things that we believe are relevant to digital. If you go beyond digital, there's a whole new level of activity that you can do. Whether you're walking into a store and using glasses to record your activity. That's been around for quite a while. And looking at point of sale material, that's been around for a while. But adding in the other things that we're using, so GSR, which is galvanic skin response, and facial expression, and eye tracking, they're the three things that we're using. They're the areas for us that when you combine the three things, you get the best return from them. So if I just explain each of those for a second, I mentioned earlier, if all you did was eye tracking, I think you'd get a better result for your site. So if all you did was sit with a customer in a mobile, everything we do is mobile, so in a mobile testing lab, if you sat with that audience and you asked them to go through a process like a checkout process and you recorded it from an eye tracking point of view, you'd get great return from it. So you would see it does some amazing things. It does, in its simplest form, the first fixation. So the first thing you look at when you go onto a site, they're the things that as marketeers we want to put in front of people. They're the really, that's our call to action. That's our messaging. That's a video that we're putting in someone's face. Sometimes people don't see it. Sometimes it's in the wrong position. Sometimes it's just not quite where it should be. So eye tracking is one angle. We then use GSR, so galvanic skin response, and we use facial expression to understand the emotional significance of what we're putting in front of someone and the emotional stimuli. And that's been the game changer for us. That's the area where we can really understand is something resonating. And what it does, so facial expression gives us 7 facial expressions that it's measuring, so happiness, sadness, the things that you'd expect. The GSR measures a skin response, and it measures effectively like an emotional response, so your heightened levels. And that gives us, there's no such thing as being happy or sad. We're on a pathway, we're on a degree of happiness, a degree of sad. How far we get there is what the GSR thing allows us to do. And if we then apply that to everything that's on a website, if we apply it to every point of sale material that someone's using, we can really understand how they're interacting with it.
What do you think the website of tomorrow looks like?
Yes. I mean, is it a website at all? Does a website exist? I think, as I mentioned, I think that we're not quite at the technology point of view yet where things are going to change drastically. I think we're waiting for the next device that will drive that. So if that will be, we've been talking about no device for ages. We've been talking about glasses for ages, where they actually work in line with your life, whether we walk around with a phone or not. For me, and looking at development plans of people that we work with, of different technology suppliers, I don't think a huge amount's changing for the next few years. The voice search is an interesting one. That's probably the next angle of what we'll be developing for. That's probably our first removal of a device. It's probably our first chance that something stays in your pocket and we just ask a question. That's probably what we're going to be designing for.
One of the questions we love asking guests is a book that you're either reading now that you'd like to recommend, or one of your favorite books.
Mostly Peppa Pig to my 2-year-old daughter. But no, I'm reading a book called Influence by Robert Cialdini, which is quite good at the moment. It's looking at selling, and it considers someone's reaction to selling and how we do it. That's quite an interesting book.
Awesome. Thank you,
better
David.
Than Peppa Pig. Thanks.
That was David Wharram, the CEO of Coast Digital.